Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Michael Armstrong podcast show. And this evening, I'm joined by Michael Baily Brown, who is from Nottingham, I believe, in the Midlands of England. And he's a podcaster, a fellow podcaster from the Tangled Mind podcast. How are you doing today, Michael? You okay?
I'm very well yourself.
Yes, I'm very well actually. I'm one of the lucky ones who've had quite a decent lockdown. So you know, I'm enjoying life at the moment because I managed to get done a lot of things I've wanted to do, for a long time and had the time to do it since lockdown.
Yeah, no, I've had a lot of time on my hands myself. I've been furloughed for the past 4 months, so I've managed to get my podcast up to scratch to where I wanted it to be, shall we say?
Yeah, good. It's good. Time is, time is good for getting things done, isn't it? So, you work as well. Obviously, you were on the furlough. So just tell us a little bit, in your words, if you like, how the lockdown has been for you. And I usually ask people as well if they've done any pivoting in that time, and you've already sort of covered a little bit of what pivot you've done in that time, if you like.
Yeah, so lockdown for me, it, I've not, I don't know anybody that's had COVID. I've not had any symptoms myself, so it's all good on that front. But I've spent a lot more time with the family. I've got 3 children. Obviously, I've been sorting out my wedding because I get married in March. But the main thing for me is family time because I'm normally working 6, 7 days a week. I've actually had time to spend with my little boy, see him take his first steps and so forth. So it's been an amazing lockdown for me.
Yeah, I can imagine. Yeah, when you get to do, life, milestones, you get to see them where you would have normally missed them. That must be, yeah, you would definitely be like me, someone who's had a good time in the lockdown. I the same as you. I haven't experienced anyone who have, been on the wrong side of COVID, if you like. And I'm a home worker. I've been working from home for the last 8 years, so routine-wise hasn't really changed much. I used to do 2 real-world networking events, and now I do 8 online networking events, or between 6 and 8 a week. And I'm just busy zooming people. I built a podcast, been marketing that, getting lots of people on. And I wrote a book, I wrote a few poems, just done loads of creative stuff that I just wouldn't normally do. So yeah, it sounds like we both had a good lockdown. But tell us a little bit about your podcast then, and what it does, and what your how people can get in touch with you, etc.
So my podcast called Tangled Mind Podcast. I set it up to support in a peer-to-peer manner with family members that suffer with mental health issues, regardless whether it's anxiety to suicidal tendencies, eating disorders, you name it. But my dad suffers with mental health. He's diagnosed with BPD, borderline personality disorder. So I set the podcast up because I know from my own experiences that I struggle with my dad wanting to take his own life um, on quite a number of occasions. So for me doing this podcast, it's my way of coping, but at the same time, it's to get other people talking about their mental health, or even somebody that knows somebody that's struggling with their mental health. It's just we are us as the family or friends of the person that's struggling themselves, them struggling. We're just as important as they are, so we need to take that time out to be able to talk about how we're feeling. And that's why I do it, because there's still that stigma about of mental health where you're not don't talk about it. There's still people out there that say mental health, you shouldn't talk about it. Actually, you shouldn't. And that's why I do the podcast, because for us and myself and anybody else that's going through tough times with family members, I'm here to support you. Even if I can help one person through it, I've done what I set out to do.
Yeah, definitely. And I'm with you on that, because the reason I set up my podcast was exactly the same reason, not really to support the people surrounding the people with mental health, but actually to try and help. people who have got mental health issues, because mine's a positivity motivational podcast. It's called You Can Do It, and I believe people can do it. They can do whatever they want to if they just reach into the inner power that they have. Sometimes they need some support from other people as well. But I myself was chewed up and spat out in the global credit crunch. So in 2008, and it probably took me about 3-4 years to get over that problem, some financial problems and a divorce. And I wouldn't say I necessarily had mental health issues, but I probably just plateaued for 4 years. And I'm somebody who's always very progressive, very driven. And I just lost the will to want to, perform and want to compete and want to drive myself forward and that. So, whether that was a mental health issue or not, I don't know. I just was in a different place than I normally am for the rest of my life. So it was a knockback. And I, after a few years, maybe 4 or 5 years, I decided actually I'm going to get myself out of this now. And I decided to use some goal setting strategies and stuff to get myself back into a forward momentum direction. And at the same time then, about a sort of year after me starting to do that, a mate of mine reached out to me who was living on the streets, and he was on drugs, and he obviously had mental health issues as well. And he basically asked me one Friday evening if I'd take him in, because otherwise he was going to be dead soon. So I took him in and got him off the legal drugs and got him onto prescription drugs, and then got him off those drugs and all the rest of that, and helped work on his mental health, and managed to get him back into full-time work, which he hadn't done for a number of years, like 5-6 years or something. And now he's a property developer, and he does trades and stuff. So yeah, I understand exactly. So I myself set this podcast up because I knew the lockdown was going to cause people mental health issues. And also, I just didn't like there's too much negativity in the world with the mainstream media, the mainstream press. So I wanted to put a bit of a yin to the yang and put some positivity out there,
Yeah, absolutely. And I think for people like myself, like you, the people that are going out the way off our own backs to support other people that suffer with mental health, it's massive. And obviously from myself, keep at what you're doing, because it makes a difference to everybody.
Yeah, I know. I definitely, not just on the podcast, but even just during this time, I know I've spoken to fellow business owners and entrepreneurs, and to be honest with you, most of them have been good because they haven't been affected by COVID, and they've managed to do a lot of things they wanted to do. But I have had some, who they can't pivot and they're stuck and they can't earn money and all the rest of that. And I've helped some people through, just by caring and listening and just being there, if you like. And some people have reached out to me, on social media and stuff. And I've joined a few mental health groups and stuff. And I just think, I'm a positive person. I'm an optimistic person. I'm not a glass half full kind of guy. I'm a glass full kind of guy. And I got a lot of energy and a lot of radiation. So the way I look at it is, just like you, even if you could just help one person, even if just one person listens in and gets the benefit, then the way I look at it is all the time you've invested in doing what you do. I love what I'm doing anyway, but that time invested is all worthwhile if you're able to help just one person.
Absolutely, and it's vital for anybody that is listening to speak out.
Yeah, definitely. And, I'm on a mission to become a global speaker. And, I talk on my podcast about motivation, positivity, education, things like sales, marketing, networking, social media, because that's my bag. That's where I'm experienced in. But I've been managing people since I was 18. And part of sales management is, to get a salesperson performing, you've got to deal with their life outside of sales. You've got to deal with their ups and their downs, their pressures, their stresses, their problem with their houses or their lives or whatever. So I've just got used to helping people because, one, it was benefit to me to do so because, it's going to help me hit my targets if the sales guys are motivated and positive and in a stable situation in their life, etc. So, as a selfish reason, really, to try and hit my targets for my job. But also, I believe, it just makes you feel good when you help other people, and what goes around comes around and all that sort of thing. So because I've always helped people, I suppose I've got to the stage now, especially what happened with me in the global credit crunch, and I'm just like, well, if I can help more and more people, whereas I was on a path to help entrepreneurs in the business world probably before lockdown, I stepped up and thought, you know what, there's going to be some victims from this. If I can stop anyone being a victim, then that's a great thing that I've done. So I've just tried to reach out wherever I can and help people. And at some point when I become a global speaker, I probably will speak in the mental health arena as well, because, you know, I'm a positive person, I got positive energy. And if I can do anything to try and help people, you know, by speaking to them and motivating them, or giving them strategies like what I've used myself and what I used with my mates to overcome issues, then, you know, if I can help them, then that's what I'd like to do on top of the entrepreneurial stuff that I do.
Yeah, it's just similar for me. That's the sort of route that I will go down. I won't say that maybe will go down, because I know that I will. It's just obviously building the foundations for me, building my brand, getting my podcast out there that bit more, getting myself out there a bit more, for obviously people to be able to say, yeah, I've heard of them before, the Tangled Mind podcast, and just be able to get out there and do that bit more, like you
Yeah,
say, motivational speaking.
Yeah, have you got a pen there? Because I got somebody you should speak to in my network. I do. I'm quite a big networker, and I do quite a lot of connecting.
Yeah,
And
I
there's a
have. I've
woman.
got a pen.
Yeah, there's a woman you should speak to. Her name's Dawn Evans,
Yeah.
and she runs the Mental Health and Wellbeing Show,
Okay.
which is the largest mental health and wellbeing show in Wales. She used to run the the National Education Show, but she sold it. So she's used
Yeah.
to running these shows, and she's got a group on Facebook called the Mental Health and Wellbeing Group, or Mental Health and Wellbeing Show Group, whatever. And she has like topics every day where people can post anything to do with mental health and wellbeing.
I'll check that out.
Yeah, so you definitely want to, you know, put your episodes in there, advertise your episodes. You know, as far I've not met anyone yet, so I haven't looked so much, but I don't know anyone who's doing what you're doing. I've not come across anyone else who's doing the you know, mental health information and education and motivation for the support network rather than the individual. So I think that's great, because it's always great to have a niche. And like you said, you know, the people supporting the people with mental health are as important, or sometimes more important, than the people with the mental health, because without them supporting them, the person with the mental health is going to be in a much, much, much worse condition and situation, you know?
Yeah. When I started it up, I was umming and ahhing whether to focus it on the people that suffer directly, the individual. But then I actually sat back and I thought, well, there's a lot of places that do that. There's a lot of people out there like that are trying to support people in a peer-to-peer manner. But there's not really anybody out there that I've noticed, apart from in like America, that are out there to support the loved ones, so, and the family members. So obviously me being that family mental health support, on a peer-to-peer manner, because obviously I'm not a trained professional. I'm doing it off my own back from my own experiences. It's obviously I've dealt with it for the past, well, 22 years. My dad's had it, so for the past 22 years, that's all I've known. And I'm 27 now, so obviously, from literally pretty much all my life, it's all I've known. So for me to be able to get out there and support people, I appreciate your feedback. So thank you.
Well, basically, you know, you are a professional. You're 22 years experience. In fact, you picked up stuff when you was a kid that other professionals haven't picked up, because
Yeah,
you sucked it up through osmosis. You know how to deal with the responses. That you know how to deal with the moods and the situation in every situation, because you've lived with somebody. So actually, you're more professional than a professional who's never lived with
yeah,
anyone full time.
yeah. To be fair, that's one of the things that I've seen like when my parents have gone to the general practitioners to speak to them, a lot of them tend to just turn around and be like, "Well, try this medication. This should help." But unless people have gone through a similar situation themselves, they won't really understand
No.
deep down. There's most of the mental health system now is still textbook from how it was years ago, but living with it day to day and being on the front line with it, shall we say, we see a lot more of it and how it actually does affect the
Yeah.
families or the individual.
Yeah, and to be honest, you applied knowledge, applied knowledge, actually putting the knowledge that other people have learned into action is where you really learn. So what I would say is actually
Yes.
you're much more advanced than somebody who's just learned this stuff out of a textbook, because you've actually seen 360 degrees of that information or knowledge applied and put into action, and the effects of that. So that's something you got to understand, and you got to remember. So, you know, you are a professional, and so you couldn't quite rightly argue with a professional who's got letters after their name, and I would potentially believe you more than them in a debate. Yeah, I
Yeah.
say potentially because it all depends on how much you have picked up over the years. But my guess
Yeah.
is with your sales experience, the fact that you probably got empathy and understanding for people, the fact that you've already created a podcast for a separate niche says you're already a creative thinker. This probably says to me you picked up a lot more over the years than the average professional would know and understand.
Yeah. And I've picked up a lot, and there's a lot of stuff that I'm still picking up. Still things even now that
Yeah,
even when I look back now, being older, and I'm sat there thinking, well, actually, that's how this is how Dad used to act. This is how he used to think, and things like that. So even now, there's still things that I'm picking up on a day-to-day basis, even just from phone calls. Because my parents live in Cornwall, so
yeah,
obviously they live down in Cornwall. I'm nearly 300 miles away. So for me, most of the stuff that are apart from when I'm with my dad and when I was younger, and over for the last 6 years, my parents have been in Cornwall.
yeah.
So even when I'm over, even just things like over the phone, my sister's there on FaceTime, on video call to my parents. I'm still picking stuff up now and listening to what the family have got to say, because we are a close family. We're a big family, but we are a very, very close knit family.
Yeah, well, the thing is, you constantly learn all the time. Doing every day's a learning day, and with conditions and stuff, they can change. And I guess as people age, and these different issues and different problems that the mental illness sort of gets mixed up with, different problems as different people, like for example, being locked in, is a situation that I'm sure has antagonized a lot of conditions that were already there, so people who already had underlying, um, you know, mental health issues, depression, and, all the different spectrums of mental health. But being locked in and being paranoid and having lots of negativity around you and all that sort of stuff is not going to help any of those conditions, is it?
No, it's not. And to be fair, I was reading the other day, since lockdown, in the age group of 18 to 25-year-old, males more than females, but in general, um, first-time mental health has actually gone up by tenfold, because there's a lot more people that are either losing their jobs because of lockdown and COVID, because like some pubs, restaurants, things aren't reopening. And then even so, when it comes down to the younger generation, the teenagers, the young kids, when it comes down to lockdown, there's been a lot more. Um, it's not very nice, but there's been a lot more suicides in younger people, young adults, teenagers, children, over the last year, because they've either been in lockdown or they just genuinely can't cope with whatever it is that's been going on in their life,
Yeah,
and it's awful.
Yeah, most of the situations has affected the young, so it would be the young that would have the effects because older people don't go out so much anyway, but younger people
Yeah.
do. So the actual whole lockdown itself affects young people more, but also um, all the jobs that the worst affected jobs are ones that young people are in as well. So it's like most managers, most older people get to management level or supervised level or whatever, those jobs are safe, but it's the ones at the bottom rung of the ladder, if you like, that are the ones that are likely to lose their jobs. And so, that's another reason why I like to give young entrepreneurs advice on my podcast because don't take your life just because you lost a job. This has never been a better time to become an entrepreneur. And so, sometimes you've got to take what's given to you. And if there's no jobs out there, you've got a device in your hand which you're constantly on. Stop playing games on it. Stop listening to music on it, and find a way of making money from it.
Yeah, exactly. And like you were just saying, then a lot of the people, like, I say the old generation, probably people from, say, the age of late 20s upwards, they're progressing in their careers. But it's the younger generation, say 25 and under, they're the people that are on the minimum wage bar jobs or the 0 hour contracts in factories and things like that. So it's, and like you're saying, this thing here is an absolute, it's a gold mine because you can earn so much money just from doing something via your mobile phone, tablet, laptop, whatever it is.
It's never been easier and cheaper to set up a business. So that's what, if I could get all the youngsters who've lost their jobs into a room, I just say, listen, well, you haven't got a family, well, you haven't got a mortgage, well, you haven't got kids. This is the time to make something happen. So don't put all your energy into looking for a job. Look for a job if you want to, but spend an hour or two a day looking for a job and spend the other 6, 8, 10, 12 finding a way of using all of the information and data that is in your fingertips, in the palm of your hands. Find all of the different platforms that are out there. Find all of the different pivots that are available to businesses during this time, and everything moving to an online world, which you already are immersed in because you spent your entire life in it. Yeah, and find a way of making it happen. That's what I'd like to tell people. I'd love to get them all in a room and get them and give them some ideas of different ways they could do that.
Yeah, and I think that's what's needed. There's a lot of people now, especially like I know we keep coming back to the younger generation, but they need educating in life and
Yeah.
how to. They obviously most of them will just sit there and listen to music on Spotify. They will sit there and they'll play games on the phone. They'll do all of the stuff that any normal, well, any kid or young adult would do, for instance.
Yeah.
But they need that. Part of it for saying this, but they need that kick up the arse to say, "Come on, right, do something with it."
Yeah, they do. They do need that kick up the arse. So that's why that's why hopefully my podcast will spread, or somebody else giving the same information will. And I talk about personal development and positivity and motivation and all that because you know some kids, unfortunately, they watch a lot of YouTube. This day and age, a YouTuber now is like the celebrity of time, and a lot of people think, "Oh, I'm going to become a YouTuber," but that boat has sailed now because the people who are all popular YouTubers all started a long time ago, and now you can't get the same numbers up. So unless you're going to really dedicate your life to becoming a YouTuber, and you're going to come up with a clever niche and a clever strategy, that boat sailed. You might be able to make it on TikTok, might be able to make it on podcasting, something that's sort of newer, but you've got to get it in there quick, and you've got to apply yourself and dedicate yourself and actually just work hard at it because it takes a long time to build up an audience. If you're new to a platform and there's not much competition, it don't have to take you that long. But they got to look at people got to look at stuff with realistic glasses and go, okay, well, not everyone 15 to 25 could be a YouTube star. So some of you, if you're passionate about being a YouTube star, put all your time and energy into it. And if you're not, do it a bit on the weekend and see if you blow up, but do something else. And there's loads of other things you could do to actually if I believe a big thing to get over mental health issues is to stop thinking about where you're at now, to stop thinking about the past and letting all of that be in your head, but actually to plan on something big for the future and just keep moving forward, some forward momentum and forward direction, and thinking about the future and forgetting about the past, and having sort of small incremental steps and things you do on a day-to-day basis. Because if you so focus on something forward and you're so focused on completing individual little tasks which get you to a bigger place than you really want to get to, then you can sort of be so focused on that, it can distract you from any of the other issues you may have going on.
Yeah. No, yeah, I couldn't agree more, to be honest, because people do just need that. They need to find it in themselves. We could sit there for hours and hours and hours and say, this is what you need to do, this is what you need to do. But if they're not motivated, that's the biggest thing that they need.
Yeah,
they need to be motivated, and they need to want it.
Yeah, the most important thing is mindset. It doesn't matter what you teach anybody with the wrong mindset; they're not going to apply any of it. So you might as well just teach them Greek or something, teach them Latin. You know what I mean? It doesn't really matter. The information you give them will make no difference. So I think what a lot of youngsters in particular, but 90% of the population, so middle-aged and old people need, is they need a mindset change. They need to work on what it is they love in life, how they can, set some goals towards that big thing that they want to achieve, and then how they can get the mindset to basically keep going when obstacles come in their way. Because everyone has obstacles, but you've got to just learn to bat them off or step over them or jump around them or do whatever you want, learn from them and keep moving forward.
I say it all the time, and when it comes down to mental health as well, if you look at it like a hurdler, that first hurdle is the hardest to get over. Once you've got over it, it gets easier and it gets easier and it gets easier, and you'll get further down the track.
Yeah.
And it is that first hurdle is always going to be the hardest. Say with mental health, that initial I'm struggling or I need help. Once they've said that, that's that first hurdle. The next ones will get easier and easier and easier over time.
Yeah, but you've got to, if you're trying to help people with mental health, you've got to just keep trying pressing buttons, keep giving opportunities to them and finding which one does resonate with them and which one they actually think, yeah, that is something I do want to do. And once you can get them onto wanting to do something and wanting to achieve something, then if you can get them being busy creating massive action, a massive activity in the direction of where they want to go, then, like you say, once they've started that first step and they're headed in the right direction, if you can keep them focused and keep them busy, I think they got less time to be in their head and to be affected then by the issues that are affecting their head and affecting their mental well-being and affecting their thought, their sort of perspective of life, if you like. Because once you're trapped in your own head and you're going round and round in circles with whatever condition you've got, your perspective on everything becomes like clouded and becomes, grey. And actually, if all of a sudden you can actually want to reach forward for something and aim for something, and it's all of a sudden bright and it's light and it's got energy and positivity, it can actually give you the power and the energy and the activity to actually start making changes which can improve, your mental well-being and your actual life in general,
Yeah. Well, I will definitely check out this mental health and wellbeing show group or whatever it's called on Facebook, and it's Dawn Evans, and check that out, because I think it will be another platform for me to get out there, shall we say?
Yeah, definitely. And the other thing which is important as well, I think, with people with mental health, is important in life in general, is to surround yourself with positive people. So if, for example, if other people around you are negative as well, then you can help each other spiral further and further down. So especially the support structure around people with mental health, they need to be, given time off like carers are now, and given rewards, and and being able to join a community of positive people, so that when they're down, they can be picked up to be positive, so that they can help be positive and a positive influence around the people who are having the mental health issues. Because positivity is a bit like it's like a drug, really, or it's a bit like a virus. It's catching, like, you know what I mean? The more positive people you're around, the more it catches, and the more negative people you're around, the more it's catching too, like, you know.
Yeah, and I couldn't agree more, because even like in a sales showroom, for instance, if you go into work and you're in a positive vibe and you're like, yeah, I'm going to sell so many today, I'm going to do this amount of figures, I'm going to sell this amount of finance, or whatever it may be. If somebody starts being negative in that workplace, eventually throughout that day, you'll just get to the point where you're like, oh, you really, like, I can't be bothered now.
Yeah.
If you're around positive people constantly, you keep going, and you smash your targets, you do what you need to do, you achieve your goals of what you want to do. So yeah, I couldn't agree more.
Yeah, well, I love the saying, if you believe you can, you're right, and if you believe you can't, you're right. Yeah, and that's what positivity and negativity does. A load of positive people will all believe they can. One negative person believes he can't and tells everyone else they can't, and then they believe they can't, and then all of a sudden you've got a load of people who believe they can't.
Exactly, and I love what your podcast calls. You can do it. I think that's literally those 4 words there are everything you need to know. Right, I'm going
Yeah.
for it.
Yeah, because I do believe in life, whatever it is you're trying to achieve, as long as it's not fantasy, anything in life that's based on reality and foundations, whatever it may be, whatever it is you're trying to do, it is always possible. Everything is
Yes.
possible, everything in reality, and even a lot of stuff beyond reality, beyond what we consider reality now. But that's how inventions happen, because there's things that other people aren't aware of, nobody's aware of, but that can be created. But if anyone wants to achieve something that they know, if somebody else has already achieved it, so climb Everest, lose 10 stone, stop drinking alcohol forever, stop smoking, anything, if somebody else has achieved it, then there's no reason why any other person on the planet couldn't achieve it. It's just a case of following a process and a system, getting the mindset right, and just doing it, and just having such a big goal and dream of achieving it, that you'll do anything possible to do it. And even if 50,000 obstacles come in your way, all you got to do is get up 50,001 times. You know what I mean? You just
Yeah,
got to get up one time more than any other number of obstacles, and you will always get to where you want to get to.
yeah, and I couldn't agree more with everything that you're saying. And I think when this podcast goes out, a lot of people will listen to it and probably sit back and listen to it and realise, do you know what? That's how I need to be. I need to be the one that's saying I can do it, and rather than I can't. So
Yeah, but a lot of people think. So I've always been into small, medium, and long-term goals, and a lot of people want to achieve something, and they set the long-term goal, and then that's it. And then they're just like, oh, I wish I could lose 10 stone. I wish I could get back into the workplace, but I can't because my mental health issue, or whatever the goal may be. They set the goal up, and it's a long way away, and they don't write it down, they don't plan it, they don't work out, okay, well, what are some stepping stones to the goal, and what are the daily things I got to do to actually reach the middle stepping stones to get to the big stepping stone. They just set a big goal, and then it's in their head, it's not written down, and then sooner or later it gets knocked out of their head, the first obstacle gets in the way, they give up, and then just forget about it and move on, and just keep in the same situation. Whereas I think that's the bit that people need to learn, is actually set that big goal up, write it down on paper, write down a plan and a strategy, consider what you need to do on a daily basis. It's like you don't start running a marathon from the couch. You don't just start running 26 miles. You start running, 100 meters, then you run 300 meters, then you run, half a mile, then you run a mile, then you run 2 miles, and you just keep building it up. So you don't just think, oh, I'm just going to get off the couch, never run before. I actually done a half marathon from the couch to a half marathon. And when I first went running, I couldn't probably run for more than 20 seconds or something, but you run for 30 the next time, 50 the next time. You only got to make a marginal gain regularly for a while, consistently for a while, and eventually you can get to a marathon. And that's what people,
Yeah, and you're right in what you're saying. There's people out there that say, right, this is where I'm going to be. I'm going to be a business owner. I'm going to be an entrepreneur, whatever it may be. But they're not holding themselves accountable for the bit in the middle. If you're setting yourself you write down your accountability of what you're going to achieve that week to get to where you need to be, tick it off as you go along. It's all about, for me, it's all about accountability.
Yeah, well, accountability, that's why it's good to have a mentor or a coach or, somebody who can hold you to account, but also it's good if you can hold yourself to account. There's only a small number of people who can do that. I'm probably one of those people, but it's a rare breed that can hold themselves to account, which is why people should reach out to a coach or a mentor or whatever. But also, if you set yourself goals and you know what they are, and if you fall off the goal, you can still make it up next time. So if I miss a goal, I just think, I'll add it on to the next goal, and I'll just make sure I hit it then. So catch up, you know what I mean? There's different ways of doing stuff, but a lot of people think, well, I've been off work for years with a mental health issue, so they go, I wish I could go back to work or something. But going back to work, it's not just a case of, okay, well, you just go back to work. The case is, well, you have to maybe go out and volunteer for an hour a week, and then volunteer for a couple of hours a week, and then volunteer, and then eventually you'll be in a situation where you could go back to work. But you couldn't just go from zero to back to work. It doesn't work like that. It's too big a bridge to fill,
Yeah. You're very true in what you're saying, because, like my dad, for instance, he was off for 9 months rather than with his mental health. He was signed off by the doctor. He was in hospital and so forth. It's a long story, but I won't go into it too much. And when he went back to work, he didn't go back doing 4 weeks straight away. They took him back and he went back to work, but he was doing 1 day a week, 2 day a week, 3 day a week, until he got back up to doing the 5 days a week that he used to do and doing the runs that he used to do. It's taking time, and although you may start to be feeling better in yourself mentally, your body will just go, I'm knackered, I can't do it. Yeah. So it's a case of taking it steady and easing back into it, isn't it?
Incremental steps, but does he do anything like exercise or meditation as well? Because they're two things which can really help mental health.
Yeah, they live in the middle of Bodmin Moor, so he's always out on the moors, either running around with the dogs, going for a run on his bike, and
I bet that's when he feels most at ease, probably.
Yeah, because he can take himself away from everything. It's like a couple of weeks ago, my mum dropped him off on the moors at 11 o'clock in the morning. He was out walking on the moors, and for about 6 or 7 hours, just him on his own, a couple of bottles of water, some snap, and he was just walking. And he says when he came home, he had thought about everything he needed to think about, cleared everything off his head, came home, and he felt great.
Yeah, well, that sounds like a mixture of exercise and mindfulness, which is a form of meditation anyway, at the same time. And, that's the key thing. This is why as soon as lockdown came and there was like an hour of exercise a day, I use that hour every day, because I'm like, if you don't use it, you lose it. You know what I mean? And if you've only got an hour, you get out and enjoy it. And I was going out on my bike riding around, and it's great just to have that sort of contemplation where you're not really thinking of anything and your brain's just allowed to chill out and work out it's a bit like a computer that's been overloaded. You need to turn it off and let it reboot itself sometimes and defrag and just, get a bit blank again so you can start opening the tabs up again,
Yeah, no, absolutely.
Yeah. So yes, when you're not podcasting and obviously back at work and now, obviously you've got 3 kids, so I guess I was going to say, what do you like to do in your spare time? But you probably don't do much other than look after the kids, I suppose, and play with them and that.
No, I spend time with the family mainly, but I like my cars, so I'm always playing about with my car,
Okay.
and yeah, just
Yeah, so you
messing about with it. To be fair.
you've got like a car pack and stuff. Is you like to put all the extras on and that sort of thing?
Well, to be fair, I changed my car more than I probably should, and I'm always just tinkering with it, trying to just tidy up, really refurbing alloys, doing all that sort of stuff. I don't modify cars. I don't do anything like that. At the minute, I've got a Jag XF, so I've just bought that. So I like to mess about with my cars. I always have done since I was a young lad, messing about with dad's cars, uncle's cars, and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But then, as well as that, mainly for me, it's spending time with family or just trying to relax as much as I can in between podcasting. Because although it helps me doing the podcasting, talking about mental health, I have to make sure that I take time out to reflect on how I'm feeling sometimes.
Yeah, well, that's
So
it. But
yeah,
you could sometimes get brought down by other people, because of their situations. And it's like I get mostly positive people on my podcast because they're entrepreneurs, and you know, um, I do a lot of dual entrepreneur chats, and then most of the other content is just me on my own, and I'm always positive. But yeah, you got to be careful. If you're having deep conversations and people are laying themselves there, you got to give yourself some time and some reflection and some space in your own brain, if you like, to overcome that. Because, like I said, the people you surround yourself with, or the information you surround yourself with, you just got to be careful you don't overload it from sometimes, and it just starts bringing you down,
exactly. It's about that balance of either dealing with my podcast, talking to people. But to be honest, most of the people that I've had on the show, most of their stories have been like heart wrenching.
Yeah.
But at the same time, for me, by them being able to open up, whether it's for the first time or talking about it, making themselves feel better, sometimes I sit there and I'm listening to them. And once I've stopped recording, I'll sit there and I'll talk to them for about an hour. And I'll say, look, if you need anybody to talk to, don't feel like you've got to go on a podcast. Just reach out. Here's my email. Contact me. We'll just talk. My email, the Tangled Mind one, it's my inbox is just stacked with people contacting me saying, I just need somebody to talk to. I'm struggling. Even my Instagram page that I obviously for my podcast, people are always messaging me. People are always following me saying, is there any way that you can help? Is there anybody that can reach out that you can ask me to reach out to help?
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, well, likewise, I always extend, if people need someone to speak to, you can always contact me via Messenger, WhatsApp, text, LinkedIn. I respond to all platforms. And if anyone needs to pick me up or whatever, I'm always happy to have a chat, and just not even a pick me up, just a chat. I'm happy to chat with people anytime. So I extend that to you as well, if ever you're in a situation. And
No, I appreciate that.
and yeah, it's been great having you on the podcast, and finding out a little bit about what you do. I guess your podcast's available on all big podcast stores, is it?
Yeah, so I just like you, I publish through Anchor as well.
Yeah.
So mine goes out to Spotify, Breaker, Apple Music, Google Podcasts, you name it. It's on all of them.
Yeah. Do you have a website for your podcast?
Not yet. I'm in the middle of setting that up. But once that is up and running, I will do. But if anybody does want to reach out, they can email tangledmindpodcast@gmail.com. I'm more than happy to help. And same again on Instagram and Facebook, Tangled Mind Podcast. I'm on there.
Just a little strategy which you might consider. It's up to you. Probably again the website would be better, but actually you can set up a blogger blog. Do you put your podcast on video as well on YouTube?
I don't. I used to have a YouTube channel just talking on my own about different mental health and stuff like that, but I've not been on it for a while.
But you can set up a blogger blog, yeah, which costs nothing, and you can set up like a tangledmind.blogspot.com or whatever it'll be, yeah. And the reason I like Blogger, so I've always used WordPress. I used Blogger before WordPress, but I've been using WordPress for like 10, 15 years, and I used Blogger for a couple of years before that. I found WordPress was better. But actually now I do YouTube. Obviously YouTube's owned by Google and Blogger's owned by Google. So I now have got a couple of Blogger blogs, and once my YouTube videos go onto YouTube, I can share them then onto Blogger. So I share the video onto a blog platform, which obviously then means that they can get indexed and searched for not just in YouTube, but in Google in general as well.
That's good. I'll have a look at that. I'll write that down now.
Yeah, so that's a good strategy. And then, so what I do, let's see, is I get the Zoom audio and video. I whack the audio into the podcast, into Anchor. I whack the video into YouTube, and then from Anchor, I shared it to like LinkedIn, Facebook, Twitter, and my WordPress blog. And from YouTube, I share it to the 5 or 6 things that I've got that it allows you to share it to, which is Blogger, Tumblr, Twitter, Facebook, and LinkedIn, etc. So I try and share the audio to all my social media, and then I share the video to all my social media, and let people pick and choose then which one they want.
Yeah, no, it's a great tip. I'll check that out later.
Yeah, brilliant. All right then. Well, yeah, thanks a lot for coming on and sharing your information and talking about your podcast and all of that. And yeah, if ever I can do anything to help you, then feel free to get in touch.
I appreciate that. Thank you very much for having me on. And likewise, if you ever need anything, reach out.
Brilliant. All right, then. Have a
All
good
right.
day. And so there's nothing else left for me to say other than have a great day. I know I will. And thanks very much for listening. Cheers. Bye-bye.